Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name is Amy, and I'm an ordained minister. We're in Bible study. We are in the Niv, and we will be through the end of 2025. We are in this video in Leviticus chapter 13, and that's a long one. So let's just jump right in. Remember, this is the Mosaic Law, or at least a portion of it. You have to go back into Exodus, and of course, all of Leviticus is still Mosaic Law. So, let's jump in here. Regulations about infectious skin diseases. Now, they'll use the term in the Bible a lot with leprosy, and they don't quite mean it in the way that we think of it in the dramatics of back then with people's limbs falling off. And it was a generic term used for you could have had a rash. They would have called it leprosy. Okay. So let's just, they didn't know where the sources of stuff came from. So every reason to, especially if you're going to be migratory, everybody's living in tents, and there's a lot of people in close quarters outside where it's hard to keep things clean. You can imagine this kind of stuff. One person gets sick, and then it's just going to spread through. It's 600,000 people. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when anyone has a swelling or a rash or a bright spot on his skin, he may become an infectious skin disease. Traditionally leprosy. The Hebrew word was used for various diseases affecting the skin, not necessarily leprosy, also elsewhere in this chapter. He must be brought to Aaron the priest or to one of his sons or descendants who is a priest. The priest is to examine the sore on his skin, and if the hair in the sore has turned white and the sore appears to be more than skin deep, be lower than the rest of the skin, and then also elsewhere in this chapter, it is an infectious skin disease. When the priest examines him, he shall pronounce him ceremonially unclean. If the spot on his skin is white, but does not appear to be more than skin deep, and the hair in it has not turned white, the priest is to put the infected person in isolation for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest is to examine him, and if he sees the sore is unchanged and has not spread in the skin, he is to keep him in isolation for another 7 days. On that 7th day, the priest is to examine him again, and if the sore has faded and has not spread, the priest shall pronounce him clean. It was only a rash. The man must wash his clothes, and he will be clean. But if the rash does spread in his skin after he has shown himself to the priest to be pronounced clean, he must appear before the priest again. The priest is to examine him, and if the rash is spread to his skin, he shall pronounce him unclean. It's an infectious disease, because it went away and it came back. When anyone has an infectious skin disease, he must be brought to the priest. The priest is to examine him, and if there is a white swelling in the skin that has turned the hair white, and if there is raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic skin disease, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. He is not to put him in isolation because he is already unclean. If the disease breaks out all over his skin, so far as the priest can see, it covers all the skin of the infected person from head to foot. The priest is to examine him, and if this disease covers his whole body, he shall pronounce the person. What? If the priest examine him and the disease has covered his whole body, he shall pronounce that person clean. Since it is all turned white, he is clean. Okay. But whenever raw flesh appears on him, he will be unclean. Okay, so that makes more sense to me. I'm like, what? His sores all over his body, but he's clean. But only if it's like, all right. So they're essentially like, if you were to think of the base of it being white, sort of like they're not going to decide a zit or a pimple makes you unclean. So, it's not the same thing as an open sore, which is more that's what the raw flesh would be about, an open sore. All right, so verse 18. When someone has a boil on his skin and it heals in the place where the boil was, a white swelling or reddish white spot appears. He must present himself to the priest. The priest is to examine it, and if it appears to be more than skin deep and the hair in it has turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an infectious skin disease that has broken out where the boil is. But if when the priest examines it, there is no white hair in it, and that it is not more than skin deep and has faded, then the priest is to put him in isolation for 7 days. If it is spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is infectious. But if the spot is unchanged and that it has not spread, it is only a scar from the boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Because absolutely, that can happen. When someone has a burn on his skin and a reddish white or white spot appears in the raw flesh of the burn, the priest is to examine the spot. If in the hair in it has turned white and it appears to be more than skin deep, it is an infectious disease that has broken out in the burn. It's dirty. The priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an infectious skin disease. But if the priest examines it and there is no white hair on the spot, then it is not more than skin deep and has faded, then the priest is to put him in isolation for 7 days. On the 7th day, if the priest examines him, and if it is spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an infectious skin disease. If, however, the spot is unchanged and it has not spread and spread in the skin, but is faded, it is swelling from the burn, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is only a scar from the burn. I was about to say, it's like, you're going to kick people out of camp because they have scars? Like, no. If a man or woman has a sore on the head or on the chin, the priest is to examine the sore. And if it appears to be more than skin deep and the hair in it is yellow and thin, the priest shall pronounce that the person is unclean. It is an itch, an infectious disease of the head or the chin. Okay? But if the priest examined this kind of sore, and it does not seem to be more than skin deep, and there is no black hair in it, then the priest is to put the infected person in isolation for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest is to examine the sore, and if the itch has not spread, and there is no yellow hair in it, and it does not appear to be more than skin deep, he must be shaved, except for the diseased area, and the priest is to keep him in isolation for another 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest is to examine the itch, and if it is not spread in the skin and appears to be no more than skin deep, the priest shall pronounce him clean. He must wash his clothes, and he will be clean. But if the itch does spread in the skin after he is pronounced clean, the priest is to examine him, and if the itch has spread in the skin, the priest does not need to look for yellow hair. The person is unclean. If, however, in his judgment, he gets to at least have some say here, unchanged, and a black hair is grown in it, the itch is healed. He is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. When a man or woman has white spots on the skin, the priest is to examine them, okay? And if the spots are dull white, it is harmless rash that is broken out on the skin, that person is clean. And when a man has lost his hair and is bald, he is clean. That's pretty specific. And I'm sure there are a bunch of guys out there that I know that are like, well, thank goodness. If he has lost his hair from the front of his scalp and has a bald forehead, he is clean. But if he has a reddish white sore on his bald head or forehead, it is an infectious disease breaking out on his head or his forehead. Well, yes, that would make logical sense. The priest is to examine him, and if the swollen sore on his head or forehead is reddish white like an infectious skin disease, the man is diseased and is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him unclean because of the sore on his head. Yes, it's like all the rest of them. Okay. The person with such an infectious disease must wear torn clothes. Let his hair be unkept, or uncover his head, so no turban wearing. Cover the lower part of his face and cry out, unclean, unclean. As long as he has the infection, he remains unclean. He must live alone, and he must live outside the camp. Sorry there. I needed to ditch the sweatshirt. It's getting warm. All right. Regulations about mildew. If any clothing is contaminated with mildew, any woolen or linen clothing, any woven or knitted material of linen or wool, any leather or anything made of leather, and if the contamination in the clothing or the leather or the woven or knitted materials or any leather article is greenish or reddish, it is spreading mildew, and it must be shown to the priest. The priest is to examine the mildew and isolate the affected article for 7 days. On the 7th day, he is to examine it, and if the mildew has spread into the clothing or the woven or knitted material or the leather, whatever its use is a destructive mildew, and the article is unclean. You know, it's not shaping up to sound like it's too good to be one of these priests. Like, first you got to slaughter a lot of animals. You got to keep a fire going. If you don't have the fire kept right, you can be set on fire. You got to examine people's, you got to butcher animals, examine people's skin diseases, and decide if something's mildewy. And this is before they had those, masks that we were all relying on during COVID and everything. This is not shaping up to be too good. The article is unclean. He must burn up the clothing or the woven or knitted material of wool or linen or any leather article that has contamination on it, because the mildew is destructive. The article must be burned up. But if, when the priest examines it, the mildew has not spread in the clothing or the woven or knitted material or the leather article, he shall order that the contaminated article be washed. Then he is to isolate it for another 7 days. After the affected article has been washed, the priest is to examine it, and if the mildew has not changed its appearance, even though it has not spread, it is unclean. Burn it with fire, whether the mildew has affected one side or the other. If the priest examines it and the mildew has faded after the article has been washed, he is to tear the contaminated part out of the clothing, I agree with that, or the leather, or the woven or knitted material. But if it reappears in the clothing, or the woven or knitted material, or in the leather article, it is spreading, and whatever has mildew must be burnt with fire. The clothing, or the woven or knitted material, or any leather article that has been washed and is rid of mildew must be washed again, and then it will be clean. These are the regulations concerning contamination by mildew in woolen, or linen clothing, woven or knitted materials, or any leather article for pronouncing them clean or unclean. Which you would have to imagine. I mean, because again, migratory people, 600,000 people roaming about, living in tents. You have this, you're responsible for all of them. And, yeah, it's the desert, but it rains sometimes, right? So the chances for mildew, the chances for skin disease, just imagine what happens in that kind of condition if mildew gets on one person's tent and they're camped too close to someone else. Or if a fire were to break out, or if somebody gets sick with something infectious, or you got this. Why these? They need a lot more priests, though, if they're going to maintain this. Because 600,000 people, and there's, 3 of them? That's not a lot for 600,000 people. So, until the next video, friends. Hello, friends. Welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. We are in Bible study. This time I started the video myself. The creator felt I was taking too much time to get to this point. We are in the book of Mark. Yes, I know people have a problem with the NIV. This is just the first one we're reading. We're going to compare it to other Bibles when we get to reading the other Bibles. It'll just be in different years because it takes a long time. You can read the whole Bible in 1 year. But it does mean reading about 3 or 4 chapters a day. Old Testament and New Testament. Because we're not just focusing on one part of the Bible. Just right now. Next year it's going to be all Old Testament and Psalms. And no New Testament at all. That I'm reading to you. Because they're all from the NIV. All already be up there. And then in 2026 we'll start fresh. And we'll probably even have a different format. Maybe we'll be doing Old Testament and New Testament and Psalms all in one day. Who knows? We'll see how that works. But for right now, we are in the book of Mark. We are in chapter 5, and we are starting at verse 21. And we are going to verse 43. But it's all one parable. A dead girl and a sick woman. Verse 21. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue rulers named Jairus came there. That's how I pronounce it, Jairus. Seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. This kid's dying. I'd go with him too. A large crowd followed. Sorry there, I got interrupted. I had a phone call that I had to take because it was, for work. So the guy is pleading for his daughter's life. "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her and she will be healed and leave." So Jesus went with him, like I said, as I would. Right? A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. So ladies, that means she had her menstrual cycle for 12 straight years. Wow. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and spent all she had. So she was trying to find solutions and couldn't find one. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. Probably because they had no idea what they were doing, and when they thought they were helping her, they were probably making it worse. Not because they were malicious, just lack of understanding of anything medical at that time. So somebody else was trying to interrupt, but no to that person. I don't even know who they are. When, verse 27, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she had been freed from her suffering. It's amazing. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out of him. She didn't ask for permission. You got to ask for permission before you touch somebody, even their clothes, on any level, even him. He turned around in the crowd, because he could feel it, and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" You see the people crowding against you, his disciples answered. Yes, yet you ask, "Who touched me?" Because it's not the same thing as them crowding around them. It's not the same thing as taking somebody's energy. They can feel it when you take their energy. But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, trembling with fear, and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, don't be afraid. Just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, so this means Mark was not present for this. Of course, Mark is not saying he's present for any of this. He is writing it down. Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." They laughed at him. Now, in this culture, there were professional mourners, where this is what they got paid for. To cry and lament and, help people mourn their dead. And after he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by her hand and said to her, Talitha koum. Talitha koum, which means little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately, the girl stood up and walked around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. Okay? So, they thought she was dead, and she was dead until Jesus decided she wasn't dead anymore. And along the way, somebody had such faith that when they touched him, he was healed. But he could feel it. So remember, you might not think people are paying any attention or absorbing or noticing what you're saying or doing around them, because they might not be reacting to you in that moment. But that doesn't mean whatever you're doing with your energy doesn't have an impact. And it doesn't mean that it's something they necessarily asked for your energy to do. If that doesn't make any sense to you, that is the equivalent of me saying, be careful how you talk to people when you're talking to them, because your words mean something, and you could be hurting people you don't even realize by not being careful with what you say or do. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we're in Bible study. We're in the Niv, and we will be through the end of 2025. We are in this video, we are in Psalms, Book 1, Psalm 39. It is for the director of music from Jebuthun, or for Jebuthun, a Psalm of David. I said, I will watch my ways, and I will keep my tongue from sin. I will put a muzzle on my mouth as long as the wicked are in my presence. But when I was silent and still, not even saying anything good, my anguish increased. My heart grew hot within me, and as I meditated, the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. It's like that for me, Susu, sometimes. Show me, O Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is nothing before you. Each man's life is but a breath. Selah. Man is a mere phantom as he goes to and fro. He bustles about, but only in vain. He heaps up his wealth, not knowing who will get it. But now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you. Save me from all my transgressions. Do not make me the scorn of fools. When I was silent, I would not open my mouth, for you are the one who has done this. Remove your scourge from me. I am overcome by the blows of your hand. You rebuke and discipline men for their sin. You consume their wealth like a moth. Each man is but a breath. Selah. Hear me. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Listen to my cry for help. Be not deaf to my weeping, for I dwell with you as an alien, a stranger, as all my fathers were. Look away from me, that I may rejoice again before I depart and am no more. Ooh, really begging to be forgiven there, isn't he?